Late one night on the 23rd of April 1901, 32-year-old Joseph O'Connor walked from his lodgings in Grattan Hill down to his place of work at Glanmire Road Station, now known as Kent Station in Cork City. Per the 1901 census taken just some weeks prior, Joseph was an engine driver, and through the night he was scheduled to drive a freight train to Tralee in County Kerry. Tralee was a significant town for Joseph. It was the hometown of his wife, Barbara, who was also an O'Connor, and she and their young 3-month-old baby, Charles, were actually staying with her family in Tralee for the 1901 census. Things looked promising enough in early April. There was steady employment with the railway, and Barbara was able to frequently stay in Tralee and still see Joseph through his job as an engine driver. The two O'Connor families were very close. There were many stops, but 3 were specifically mentioned at the inquest: Mallow, Farranfore, and Gertrude. According to witnesses at the various stops, the men on the train were as regular as could be and perfectly sober. But just at the journey's end in Tralee Station, something went drastically wrong. The railway was the dominant employer of the O'Connor family. From his deceased father Charles to his brother Charles and his brother-in-law Francis Devine, not to mention a lot of family friends. There was a significant level of railway experience and knowledge between them all. So what was the prevailing opinion within family circles? Ivor McCarthy is a grandnephew of Joseph.
Of course, over a century later, we can never be absolutely certain as to the cause of the tragedy, but there are interesting details within both the railway company's own report as well as numerous newspaper articles which cover the inquest. According to the railway company, this heavily laden goods train would have been on a hill with the descent starting nearly 3 miles out from Tralee Station. The descent was, quote, a continuously falling gradient over a distance of 2.5 miles, followed by a level portion, which was just under 1/4 mile.
It's obvious in that scenario of continuous descent, not applying the brakes, or alternatively, brake failure, would have resulted in a significant increase in speed for such a heavy and bulky load. What is beyond dispute from all viewpoints is that the train was going way too fast. According to newspaper reports, the train, with its 15 wagons, an engine, a tender and 2 brake vans, instead of slowing down per usual, was actually gaining momentum. A local farmer, Mr. Irwin, living nearby, noticed the train travelling at an unusually rapid speed and came to the conclusion that there was something wrong with it. The train was apparently in good working order less than half an hour and 7 miles earlier in Kerry. Even though the surviving guard from the rear of the train, Michael Manning, was adamant that all went well and according to plan at Kerry with the detachment of 4 wagons, Michael Gleeson, the signalman at Kerry, could not confirm for the inquest if the vacuum brake attached to the fire engine was actually coupled. Whatever the reason, it's clear that something happened to either the driver or the train within a quarter of an hour after leaving Tralee Station at 6:02 a.m. The company contended that the accident happened because Joseph, and indeed the fireman and the guard, were gossiping and unaware as to how near the station they were. Yet, there were no witnesses who supported that theory. No one reported seeing any of the men talking to each other. When Michael Gleeson, the signalman at Kerry, exchanged pleasantries with Joseph and asked him how he was doing, Joseph replied with one word only: fairly. Not particularly the behaviour of a man in the mood for a chat. What was broadly witnessed, though, was the lack of any braking activity. This reference to a lack of checking indicated that there was no evidence of any actual braking activity even up to the last few seconds. And per the evidence of the signalman, both the driver and the fireman were standing at their brakes on the correct side of the footplate on approach into the station. According to the company report and inquest, Joseph had driven this train for over 2 years, and this was driver Connor's regular engine, and he would be employed in it more than anyone else. Yet, per their report's conclusions, all of the 3 dead people on that train failed to discharge their duties. To quote the newspaper Kerry Sentinel, these men were unhappily silenced by death. According to the Kerry Weekly, railway officials were extremely reticent about the theory that the brakes did not work, but they showed no such reticence about publishing their own version of events a mere 3 days after the tragedy and before the inquiry, a behaviour which was considered highly improper by the coroner. It's also interesting to note that in April, the actual month of the accident itself, there were numerous reports of other faults with this exact train. Further information also emerged at the inquest. The signalman, Keyes, also stated that per the usual custom, he was ready on the platform to take the staff from the driver. But Joseph did not hand him the staff, nor did he even look in his direction. He additionally didn't respond to Keyes shouting at him, yet he was standing at the brake. And he had certainly managed to exchange staffs without a problem not long before with the signalman at Tralee, Michael Gleeson. Was it that Joseph was simply too preoccupied trying to apply brakes to avert an accident? At the very least, it seems odd that neither Joseph nor the fireman was aware of the speed in the first place, given the numerous eyewitness accounts. It is also strange that no braking activity was heard or obvious. One would have expected to hear the brakes being deployed, even if it was way too late to avoid a collision. The speed of the train running into this platform was described by some onlookers as terrifying. The reality is that the gossiping theory, although entirely unproven with zero witnesses, could help the company justify the placing of blame on all three of their dead employees. If they all had been engaged in chatter, no one person would have seen the danger and warned the others. The only working person on that train who was not blamed was the survivor, Michael Manning, who said that he applied his brake until he knocked lightning out of the road. But it was all to no avail. The jury, on instruction from the coroner, returned an open verdict. Despite the many questions and indeed the inquest's open verdict, a simple Google search of the event today shows this.
My father said that his mother always spoke of the dog the night Joseph left. Joseph had a dog which on this night didn't want him to leave the house as he was going out for work. Having been unable to persuade the dog to stop following him, Joseph had to retrace his steps all the way back and bring the dog home. There he met his sister, my grandmother, Sadie, and that was the last time she ever saw him. The family always felt that the dog had a sixth sense of something going wrong that night, because he had never behaved that way before. But who knows?
On the 12th of December 1901, 7.5 months after the accident, a new legacy was delivered for Joseph in the form of a little girl called Rosanna, and she was named after Joseph's mother, Rosanna Allen. But the little girl, who never knew her father, died in 1904, not even having reached her 3rd birthday. Joseph's brother Charles, who purchased the plot for his mother in 1899, surely never anticipated having to add the words, "and of his beloved brother Joseph," so soon after the passing of his mother.